Good morning.
Morning, Tim.
Good morning.
Tim.
Can you hear us, Tim?
Perfectly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which airport did you have to go to?
LAX. I'm over here at Whole Foods off of Sepulveda, just sitting at the parking lot.
Oh.
Okay, Robin, we could go live whenever you're ready and start the meeting.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It is 9:05. I will call the meeting to order. And the first item would be approval of the minutes. Did everyone have a chance to look those over?
Yes.
Yes.
Could I have a motion and a second?
Motion to approve.
Motion to second. Second.
Eric, take a vote.
So we did do the roll call, but so we'll do that first, just if that's okay.
Oh, yes.
Chair Supervisor Barger is not here, and neither is her alternate Anish Saria. So Vice Chair Carter,
Present.
Mayor Hepburn,
Present.
Mr. Skelton.
Present.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll take the roll call vote with the three that are in attendance. Vice Chair Carter,
Yes.
Mayor Hepburn,
Yes.
and Member Skelton.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. We will move on to declaration of emergency pursuant to government.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
No, go ahead. We were just wondering when we want to bring in Tammy and Anthony, but let's do this item and then we'll bring them in. So,
Okay. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54953, the Public Financing Authority may continue to hold their public meetings via teleconference due to the COVID-19 pandemic by adopting a resolution. Staff has prepared the resolution, and so we just need to vote on it to move forward. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
Eric?
Yes, Vice Chair Carter,
Yes.
Mayor Hepburn,
Yes.
Member Skelton.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And now we're going to bring in the oncoming board at our next meeting. So let me just bring them in real fast. Tammy and Dr. Orlando, I'm bringing you in.
Morning.
Good
morning, everyone.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Tammy,
Good morning, and welcome.
good morning.
Good morning.
And I know the next meeting will be when the two of you are actually seated, which will be in September, but would you just like to introduce yourself a little bit for the benefit of the rest of the board, and then we can move on to the public hearing and other items?
Sure. I'm Anthony Orlando. I'm a professor of finance, real estate, and law at Cal Poly Pomona. And I teach and do research on finance, real estate, affordable housing, community development. And so I'm excited to be here and to contribute in whatever way that I can. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tammy Amoto-Frias. I'm the supervisor's budget deputy. I've been with the supervisor for 4 years, but with the county for 22 years. This is my first time on a body like this, so very excited to be here. Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome to both of you.
Welcome, both of you.
Okay, we will move on to item number 4, public hearing, the annual report. Per state law, the Public Financing Authority is required to adopt an annual report of activities undertaken within the last fiscal year. This is the second annual report of the district and was mailed out to all property owners and participating tax entities. Staff's going to give a report on this.
It'll be very brief. Thank you, Ms. Vice Chair. Staff is recommending the Public Financing Authority approve resolution 22-03, which is approving the annual budget for the year fiscal year 21-22. That annual report's been posted on our website for now about 45 full days, mailed to all property owners within the district. Because the EIFD is within its infancy, there's not a lot to report on. There are no direct costs related to the projects that we've undertaken so far by the EIFD, and Bob's going to talk a little bit more about the financing after I go through this. But the report does show the two projects that we have been doing work on, which is the pedestrian bridge linking the L-line station platform to the Fairplex property on the south side of Arrow Highway. as well as improvements to E and Second Streets, which we're going to go through in a PowerPoint and show you some of those images very shortly. It also reports on the revenue. So starting in the fiscal year, the EIFD had about 90,000 in funds that have been collected so far, with another 65,000 estimated for this last fiscal year, bringing the total balance of the district's funds to 154,000. We expect to receive 75,000. So, you know, as the property tax increment will continue to grow as time goes on and new projects come online. So next year, our financial consultants have estimated 75,000 in tax increment revenue for the EIFD. So this notice was posted. So we are recommending that you approve the resolution approving the annual report. And then after that, then we will go through a short PowerPoint presentation to kind of tell you where we're at with those financings and the specific project of E and Second Street with some images. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions on the annual report, but would recommend that you approve resolution 22-03 at this time.
Okay. Do we have any public comment? Anybody that wrote in or is on that would like to speak?
We have not received any official public comment, but obviously anybody on today could raise their hand if they're an attendee, or Dr. Orlando or Ms. Omoto Farias, if you'd like.
Yeah, Tammy, I see your hand is raised. Did you want to make a comment on this?
I'm sorry, it should not be raised. Let me lower
Oh,
that hand.
okay. I didn't want to miss you. Thank you. Okay, any comments from anyone? Okay, then let's go ahead and do I hear a motion to accept the resolution?
Motion to accept resolution.
Okay, Ray seconded. Eric, you want to take a vote?
Yes, Vice Chair Carter,
Yes.
Mayor Hepburn,
Yes.
Member Skelton.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, let me go ahead and queue up this PowerPoint. Hold on one second. Okay, everybody should be able to see this, correct?
Almost.
Not yet.
Not yet?
There it is.
There we go.
Okay. All right, so this is an abbreviated version of the slideshow that was presented to the City Council earlier this month. I'll talk a little bit about the projects, and then I'll turn it over to Bob for some of the financial stuff. So E and Second Street improvements, these are key improvements that we're undertaking that were generally listed in the EIFD, the infrastructure financing plan for the district. This is to improve pedestrian access from the station platform, which you can see down here in the yellow area, to the heart of Old Town Laverne and the University of Laverne. So E Street to Second Street, just a 2-block walk, but there aren't a lot of improvements in this area, lack of lighting, landscaping, sidewalks. And so we want a kind of consistent design to improve that, including a bike lane. So I'm going to show you some of these plans. So over here is the goal line tracks, the future goal line tracks. This is East Street, so this is north. And what we're doing at First Street to Second Street is removing all the existing trees. There's some are different size and different species. We want a consistent design in the landscaping, so the ground cover as well as the trees will be consistently designed by it was designed by our landscape architect. And we're also widening the sidewalk all the way to the city's right-of-way line. So there will still be a parkway between the street and the sidewalk, but we're able to pick up about 2 feet extra to widen the sidewalk just to make it a nicer walk. And like I mentioned, also installing street lights, pedestrian style street lights, which don't exist in this area today. The biggest change, I think, will be at the intersection of E and Second Street, where we're going to fold out the corners of the sidewalk to make the crosswalks shorter, as well as do enhanced crosswalks with paving materials and color and texture to make this a safer and well-defined public pedestrian walkway. Again, E Street will be a Class 3 bike lane from the station platform all the way up to Benito, where we have an existing Class 1 bike lane. This is D Street, so now north is up here. D Street from on Second Street here from D to E. This is a half block, but basically the same planting platform or planting pattern, as well as continuing of the enhanced crosswalks that are missing here at this intersection. These are the tree species that will be planted throughout, and some of the ground cover native to California and drought tolerant, obviously. These improvements are projected to cost $2.5 million. I tried to get the update on when we expect to go to bid. The plans are almost done. Do you remember what Cody said?
I think he said it was gonna be like August.
So we're really close to being able to go out to bid to start this project, which is exciting. It'd be the first physical improvements in the area, besides the L line itself, that will be undertaking through the EIFD. So I'll turn over to Bob to talk about the financial part of it.
Yes, thank you. And just backing up for the benefit of the two new members, when we started to look at our projects and the priority projects, the two that are listed in the report here were identified as the priority projects that we wanted to move forward on. And I'll talk a little bit about the bridge in a minute. But as Eric also pointed out, the challenging part, for which is consistent with tax increment districts, goes to with redevelopment agencies, was there's not sufficient revenue coming in at this time to support the issuance of a bond to pay for this work. And we recognize the need to get this project done prior to the gold line becoming operational. So there was really a need to find a way to finance it. So we had previous actions and discussions with the PFA as well as the city council, where we, the city, in order to get a better rating and interest rate, would actually issue the bonds with the understanding and the cooperation agreement that eventually the PFA would pay the city back over a future time to be determined. And that will, as increment is generated, that will occur. So we've been going through the process with the blessing of both boards of the city. When we first brought it to was the issuance of a 30-year bond. As we looked at it and evaluated our options, we determined that it would be in our better interest to get a better interest rate, as well as to keep the amount of interest being paid to a minimum, was to do a private placement. So we put out to the market, and there were 3 bidders, banks, that submitted proposals. The most favorable was with Capital One, who gave us a 20-year term of 3.6. And we had basically a 60-day, give or take 45-day rate lock on that, which we were pursuing this back in April. So we were really fortunate because we got just ahead of where the rates were starting to rise. So we took that and we brought that back to the council. And last week, 2 weeks ago, we officially issued those finished that private placement. And have completed that transaction at that point. So what I'd like to first do is congratulate this group as well as the city council, because we are the first EIFD, as I've been told by Cosmont, so I'm taking them at their word, and I believe it's true. We are the first EIFD to have issued a bond for the pursuit of some of the things that are in their infrastructure plan. So we're trailblazing here, folks, so congratulations to you all. So the way the structure will work going forward, I don't know if the next slide talks about it, Eric, is so the city will be making the lease payments on an annual basis for the 20-year period. The city will be using their Prop C allocation because this is connected to mass transit. So we are able to use those dollars to fund this project. On the back end, we will be keeping track, and you'll start to see as we start to do work on your annual report here, how much of these expenses are being incurred by the city on the PFA's behalf. So eventually, as we start to see the increment continue to grow, and I think does the next slide talk about that? Okay, so go back for a second. The PFA will be able to start reimbursing the city at some point. But essentially what the city did in this structure is we put our corporate yard up as I'll call it the securing capital so we could get this favorable interest rate. Effectively, we are leasing that back. There's no risk of losing that building or that property as part of it, but we put that up as a way, as a mechanism to ensure the lease back structure was intact. So that is the structure that we are using. The city will make these payments. This next slide shows what the debt service on an annual basis is projected to be. So the one consequence of going to the 20-year versus the 30-year is the annual payment went up. The last time you saw these slides, it was projected to, I think, peak at about 210,000 a year. Obviously, when we shortened the time and the rate was a little bit higher, we're at about 260. But there is still sufficient funding coming in from Prop C to be able to support this payment on an annual basis. So that's the structure of how it will work. And then it's really, there is no set time at this point by the city as to when the PFA will need to start paying it back. But it certainly is something that as we gain that capacity, we will want to be able to do. So I think that's all the slides I have on this, but I'll stop and ask if anybody has any questions, because I do want to go over a little bit of where we're at with the pedestrian bridge. Any questions on this project or the bond structure?
No.
No.
Okay. So the other priority project that we have, and I apologize, we don't have any slides on it, is the pedestrian bridge. And we have, we're about 90%, pretty close. Yeah. We almost have construction ready drawings for that project as well. We were able to secure a sub-regional funding through COGS Measure M call for projects several years ago, and the city was able to put in an additional 400,000 to bridge the difference. So that project is pretty much ready to put out by the end of this year. It's another project that we found was a priority to try and complete before the line became operational. And just so you know, the projected time frame for that at this point is September, give or take, of 2025. So we're kind of right in this wheelhouse of where we need to start to get these things done. The project, the pedestrian bridge by itself is, last estimate was about $11 million to be constructed. That didn't deal with the undergrounding that of the Edison poles that will need to be addressed, but the construction and placement of the bridge that has been designed at this point that's what the cost is. I can tell you at this moment, we have $7.5 million of external funds already secured for that project. 4 million of that is in an earmark on the congressional earmark that Napolitano advanced for us. So we have that secured. And we just received word, I want to say maybe a month ago, that we have about 3.5 million from the next call for projects of the sub-regional money with San Gabriel Valley COG. So those two have been successfully secured. So the remaining 4 million, we still have a couple of ATP requests out there that we haven't heard back on. We'll see how we score on that. But even if we don't, the EIFD has roughly $4 to $6 million, because we have 2 million of that would be for undergrounding, but we have $4 million of anticipated bond issuance to fill that gap. So we have the funding we need, either with the issuance of another bond or if we get additional funds to move that project forward. So we're going to get those drawings hopefully completed here in a very short time. There's some alignment with utilities that is being worked out at this point, making sure that we're lining up where the bridge will come into the parking lot and those elevations. But we're down to the final points here, but we should be in a position where we can also get that project out to bid by the end of this year. So another, I think, really piece of good news as it relates to the public projects that we need to take on for this. So any questions there?
Bob, I have a question for you. Where is the Fairplex in all this? Have they been part of the talks? Because they benefit from the bridge going in too.
Yes, they've been definitely invited and been participating in the design component. They're currently doing their own work on finding a developer to develop the site. There are 12 acres that are in the Laverne section that would be around this pedestrian bridge. So they haven't identified that developer yet. Once they do, then we'll bring them up to speed because it'll be key to how they develop their site. So do Walter give you a timeline of when they expect to make a decision on that?
No, I have a call with him on Monday, and that's when we usually get our updates. Just prior to the fair, they were vetting, and I think they had narrowed down to 2. But next week, I will have a better idea of what their timeline is to get moving.
Okay.
And I will just add on to that, as it related to the bridge, we've had discussions with them. They've been a participant because when there's a portion of this bridge that will obviously fall on their property. And so they've been very cooperative, engaged in whatever we need to do, whether it is an easement or a lot line adjustment, whatever needs to happen to accommodate this public improvement, they're prepared to do. They recognize the value in it. They recognize what the benefit to their development as well as their operations. So they're very excited about this coming into fruition.
Good. Okay, wonderful. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, so was that basically item number 5, the update?
Do you want to give any updates as far as where we're at with any of the development projects otherwise?
There really isn't much more. We've entitled some projects down in this area. We expect to receive an application for a major development. They're very near to the station platform, mixed use development, very high density, 400 or so units. So we're waiting for that application. Once that's submitted, we'll share more of the details of that with the board so you're aware of those specifics. But it definitely is aligned with what the Old Town Laverne specific plan envisions for this area to take advantage of the light rail station.
Wonderful. Good. Okay, then we will move on to public comment, oral communication. This is the time set aside for anyone wishing to address the Public Financing Authority on items not listed in any other place on the agenda. Under the provisions of the Brown Act, the legislative body is prohibited from talking or engaging in discussions on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Is there anybody that called in, Eric, or?
No emails or requests to speak under public comment.
Hey, Tim, did you want to speak? I can't tell if you're waving or just adjusting.
Yeah, when you're ready, yes, I would.
Okay, now's the time. Go ahead.
Well, I think we've all said it multiple times, but I want to thank you also for being on the Finance Authority for many years now, you and I, but I also want to thank Bob and Eric and also our supervisor, Bart, for approving this. It's always nice to be the first and it's done smoothly. And now that we're the first to actually pull some money on this thing, I think we are so far ahead of the game. And I want to thank Bob, especially for getting this going and working this through and streamlining through council. I want to thank the council and the previous mayor, Don Kendrick, as I stated before. He was an absolute proponent of this. And I think that, and so was Charlie and everybody else that, was on at the time. And it was a lot of work, but boy, look where we are now, bridges and congressional money and other monies, the ATP, money. It's just way beyond what I would have envisioned. I think we're just heading into that an unbelievable time right now. So I appreciate all the help. Bob, great job. Robin, great job being the co-chair, and Eric, also your department, just making sure this stuff flies through, and thanking our county supervisors, because it was definitely a partnership with all, and it turned out really well. So thank you all.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tim. Anyone else?
I'd just like to second the mayor's comments. If we hadn't started when we did, much of this funding, we would still be trying to secure it.
Mm-hmm.
Our timing was really excellent and forward looking.
I agree. Good. Okay,
I could, just a couple comments. As I stated for some of you, before, as we were coming into the meeting, I will be retiring this August, so, this will be my last meeting with you all. And I can honestly say, and I want to thank you all for your part in this. This is probably, in my 12 years as manager, is one of those things that I am so happy that I got to have a part in putting in place, because it really, this will enable this community to take on those projects that when we first did the specific plan, I think the question came from Dan Kesey to me years ago. This looks great. How are we going to pay for it? And that resonated with me. And then this became the path to make those things happen. And we truly have that mechanism to put those pieces in action, to facilitate the development, to get the maximum use out of that gold line that train station that's going to come into Laverne. So I just thank you all for your part and allowing me to be the little part of that path forward. I'm very proud of it. So thank you.
well, thank you, Bob. Okay, I'd like to thank Anthony and Tammy for joining us today. And you will get sworn in next meeting. But thank you, everybody, for coming. I will adjourn the meeting right now at 9:31. And the next meeting will be held on September 14th at 9 a.m. See you then.